Dutch test so you can see what it would look like and the level of information that you get about your hormones and where you are, tracking in your perimenopause or your menopause. But what it also tells you about your stress levels and your melatonin and whether you're deficient in B12 and that sort of thing. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, here we go. Sorry about the delay. Okay, so as you can see, look, this is my test result, okay? I tested this last year. It was a very extremely stressful time when I did this test, and it did show me that I was super stressed. It did show me that I already knew that I was beyond the menopause. So I'm out of the other side of the menopause. My last bleed was 2 years ago. So it showed me that my hormones are below the menopause level. That's fine. It showed me testosterone levels were quite good. But it also showed me a couple of really interesting things. So you can see on the screen here, you've got lots of dials, and it can be quite complicated to someone who hasn't done the training. So this is where I come in. I've done the training and I know how to interpret these results. But I just want to show you the type of information that you would get. Firstly, it will show you all your sex hormones. So it would show you how much estradiol and progesterone you are producing and how much testosterone you're producing. Now, this is very normal for postmenopausal range, that I will have no estrogen left. I'm within the range with progesterone. And as we know, estrogen is so important. Aside from sex hormones, it's very important for cardiovascular health, for cognitive function, for gut health, for body temperature, for your thyroid, for your metabolism of sugar, your insulin response, your stress levels. All those sorts of things rely on the production of estrogen. Progesterone is very, very important for the for feeling calm and for a good night's sleep. And you know, it also has this delicate interaction with the thyroid and testosterone. Testosterone really is that get up and go. So interestingly, you know, there was no surprise that my estrogen and my progesterone were pretty much on the floor, having been post-menopause. But interestingly, I have a very healthy level of testosterone, which gives me get up and go and feeling like, yes, I've got some energy and I'm, you know, fighting fit and I can get through the day without being absolutely exhausted, tired all the time and frazzled. Interestingly also, look, I'm producing a fair amount of DHEA, which is good. But what we do see here, this blue line is my cortisol levels. And when I did do this test, I was quite stressed. I was here on my own with the boys. I didn't have a very good night's sleep that night before. I was quite nervous doing the test, which was interesting because it helps me understand my clients and what they're going through when they do the test. So when you do the Dutch test, you do 4 different urine samples and you let that dry over the period of a whole day. And you do 5 saliva samples, which really is that cortisol awakening response. So it measures your cortisol for a 24-hour period and it measures all the sex hormones, but also all your stress hormones. Very interesting. So basically what this showed was, yes, I was very stressed and I was pretty much running on empty. So while I was producing a lot of cortisol, I didn't really have a lot of cortisone. So I was finding it difficult to switch between the cortisone effect. And, you know, I was quite close to burnout, quite close to adrenal burnout. But what's really interesting also in this test, what it shows us, it gives us all the ranges, all the numbers, which I number crunch, and I, you know, do a lot of information. I do a lot with that information. But the dials are really interesting. So here, what this shows us is really interesting, and this is not typical of some of the results that I see. So I see, if you have a look on this pie chart, we see green and red and blue, and basically we don't want a lot of blue and we definitely do not want a lot of red. We want to see a lot of green, which means that the phase 1 of my detox pathways are working really well. Okay, so basically I explain this to my clients in the way that we've got 3 doors. We've got to make our hormones, but we have to metabolize them. We have to get them out of the body. And what this test shows us is how well you're metabolizing your hormones. So it's telling us how much hormones you have, and it's also telling us how well we're metabolizing. So how well our phase 1 of our detox pathways are operating. And that is really telling us very good, the health of the liver and the main pathways involved in the main route of elimination. So the liver, the gallbladder, the lymphatic system, the digestive system, and how well we're able to excrete hormones via the endocrine system. So the kidneys and the urine and the bladder, etc. All right, so what it's showing us that you've got, the green door is the protective pathway. This is where we want to be metabolizing. This is where we want the pathway that we want our hormones to leave the body. This is really good. The red pathway is dangerous. This is the pathway that causes DNA damage, precursor to nasty situations, diseases, and things like cancer, and oxidative stress. So when you have a stress picture like I was in when I did this test, this was showing me that a little bit of my hormones were being metabolized down that dangerous pathway, that I really needed to get on top of my stress, and I needed to increase my antioxidants. So my range of really colorful fruit and veg, but also a little bit of extra support like coenzyme Q10 and antioxidants to make sure that these hormones are not causing DNA damage. And then we see the blue pathway. Now, sometimes in some people's tests, I see really big blue sector of that chart. And what that tells me is that the hormones are being recirculated and they're being reabsorbed. And this is very consistent with someone who is obese and who has very androgenic symptoms like acne, facial hair, joint pain, insomnia, all of those unwanted hormone symptoms, really bad facial acne, that sort of thing, bad body odor. So when we see a big blue pathway, what's happening is those hormones are being recirculated, and often then they're getting reabsorbed into the body and they're getting reabsorbed into fat. And then that makes it very, very difficult to lose that fat because those hormones are almost creating their own hormones, and they're having this knock-on effect on the insulin response, and it's causing us to store fat. So we don't want to be in that cycle. And what happens here is like we have this Bermuda Triangle effect where we're trying to metabolize these hormones and they're trying to come down this blue pathway, and they're almost getting stuck and they're going back around and getting recirculated. And we don't want that. And I often see in ladies, I see a preference for 5A reductase activity, and we don't want that either. This is where we see those androgenic symptoms like facial hair and difficulty in losing weight and insomnia and all those nasty things. Okay, so then we come down and we see that I'm methylating quite well down the protective pathway, which is really good. But then my methylation is quite low. Now, I've also had my DNA tested, and in my DNA, it told me that I have some difficulty in methylating. So I struggle with methylating alcohol, caffeine, and I need B12. Like I have a greater need for B vitamins and D vitamins and omega-3. My background is Mediterranean. I suit the Mediterranean diet, and all of that was disclosed in my DNA test, which is fantastic to know. So yes, I do supplement with B12. I do supplement with D drops, like a vitamin D. Of course, being an Aussie, first winter in England, of course, then my vitamin D levels were a little bit deplete, and that impacts my methylation. So that impacts my ability to have those phase 2 of your detox pathways, that ability to methylate and get those hormones out of the body. So we make our hormones and we need to detox them. We need to make them, use them, and then get rid of them. And so my ability to get rid of them, particularly if I was absorbing stress, was a little bit compromised because I've got this low ability to methylate, and therefore I'm much more sensitive to caffeine and alcohol, which I knew anyway. So, you know, having my 1 decaf a day, that suits me well instead of having more coffee. Definitely suits me not to have alcohol. Definitely suits me to have a good Mediterranean diet, lots of good fish oils, lots of good omega-3s rather than too much omega-6, good vitamin D, good time in the sunshine, and a relaxed sort of Mediterranean lifestyle. So really interesting. So when I see the results for clients, I really like to take them through what it all means. And then we look at diet and lifestyle factors that will impact the phase 1 and the phase 2 of the detox pathways. And everybody is different. Every result I see is different. Some people have really big blue, lots of red. Some people may be having methylating too quickly, which means that they're just burning through the hormones. Some ladies have androgenic symptoms, which we can see with underactive thyroid, weight gain, insomnia, that sort of thing. So what this test also shows us is our adrenals. So it will give us a bit of an idea on how much melatonin we're producing. So sometimes when I see ladies that are insomniac, their melatonin is right down here below the scale. They're just not producing the melatonin. And look, serotonin is a precursor to melatonin. So what we can do is really focus on sleep hygiene. We can look at various supplements that will support the production of serotonin. Things like lavender oil, amazing for the support of serotonin. 5-HTP, which is like an amino acids, can be very supportive to serotonin, which can support then the production of melatonin. So some ladies I see with very little melatonin production, no wonder they're not sleeping well. And then we also get to see this cortisol pattern. So as you can see here, my cortisol, the very beginning of this line was my my level of cortisol in the nighttime, which was suggesting that I've got blood sugar issues. I was quite stressed at the time. I think I was eating chocolate late at night. That definitely shows up. And interestingly, when I did the test, like you're not supposed to have caffeine or alcohol around the test. I didn't have caffeine or alcohol the night before. But I got up in the morning and I had a cup of tea and I completely forgot that I shouldn't be having caffeine. So sometimes it's easy to forget that, yes, there's caffeine in tea. And you can see this spike in my stress straight after, like within 30 minutes of waking up, I've got this spike of this stress. Wow, that showed me the impact of the cup of tea. Now, interestingly, like I taper off quite well in the afternoon and the evening, and I'm low at night. So my cortisol levels, you know, tapering off late afternoon when they should be. And cortisol is designed to keep us awake when we're meant to be awake and asleep when we're meant to be asleep. So my saving grace on my adrenal glands, which were quite deplete when I did this test, was the fact that I am producing melatonin, which is great. So I do sleep well, which is very good, very important for recovery. And I've done a lot since this test to manage stress. So those little daily walks, dancing, you know, getting out and doing my 80s dance moves, fantastic. My Pilates, my yoga, knowing that they are so important for someone who's post-menopause and struggles with a little bit of stress. Eliminating the caffeine, making sure I'm having decaf tea, decaf coffee. I still love my cup of tea in the morning, but knowing that that has that effect on there. So if I am feeling a little bit jittery and a little bit prone to anxiety, then I know that, you know, I'm almost running on empty with my cortisol because, you know, traveling, living in 2 countries for the last 18 years, running my business in 2 countries, working at festivals, working, you know, sometimes running 24-hour juice bar, not focusing on my sleep, having children late in life, knowing that it's very important for me to do those lifestyle factors that improve your feeling of calm and serenity during the day, avoiding alcohol, avoiding caffeine, avoiding sugars, avoiding eating after the evening meal. So even that late night snacking, like sitting in front of the telly, look, what I used to do was make this, amazing. Like I would roast some cashews and then I'd drizzle them in this like a salted caramel honey mixture, and I'd sit in front of the telly during lockdown and during winter, and I'd be scoffing these cashews. I mean, yeah, super healthy, but loaded with calories, loaded with extra sugar, spiking the insulin, and at the wrong time of the day. So if I was to have those mid-morning as a mid-morning snack and load up on my calories earlier in the day, that's going to support the cortisol effect and not spike my blood sugars in the evening, and then of course not store that all those calories as fat, and therefore be much more relaxed about things. So it's interesting to see the impact of the lifestyle and the insulin and the cortisol and the sex hormones all in one test. Now, what I do, I also add in for my clients a blood test that will give me all the red blood cells, white blood cells, the thyroid, the reverse T3, so any antibodies in the thyroid. It'll also tell me about liver function, kidney function, vitamin D levels, super important because I often see really low vitamin D levels, and how much vitamin B12 we need. So this is also something that is in this test. We have a B12 marker. So when we're above range, we have a greater need for B12, and that's consistent with my DNA test as well. And that's also consistent with my other blood tests. The rest of these markers were within range. So B6 was okay. Glutathione, I often see a need for glutathione in clients that have poor gut health. And I was seeing, a very healthy range, within range for my adrenaline and my dopamine and my melatonin. So, I do sleep well, so I can cope with a small amount of stress as long as it's not chronic stress. And I do notice that my oxidative stress, where I was seeing a little bit of the red marker, which is DNA damage and causing oxidative stress, I saw that was quite low as well. So that was really good. Okay, so there we go. That's a little bit of an overview of the Dutch test. It is an investment, but it's an incredible amount of information for, working out what are you doing with your hormones? What are your hormones doing? And where are you in your perimenopause or your menopause journey? And how are your stress hormones? How are they impacting your hormones? How are you methylating? Like, what are your detox pathways? What are they doing? Because, how well you're detoxifying your hormones will also tell us how well you're detoxifying everything else in life, because we are being, we're being exposed to toxins all the time, and our detox pathways need to be functioning really well. Otherwise, we're going to be feeling really tired, really achy. We're not going to be sleeping well, and we're going to be putting on weight. So that's the benefit of knowing exactly what your detox pathways are doing. And then the benefit of knowing also what your stress hormones are doing, so that you know that you really need to focus on those lifestyle factors. So let me know if you'd like to do a test. It is incredibly beneficial. I usually run it alongside DNA tests, blood tests to check out the function of all the rest of the organs, and of course the comprehensive stool analysis, which gives an idea of what's going on in the gut. How is the microbiome? How do you have a good range of all the important good bacteria? Do you have any of the bad bacteria? So we have a good breakdown of all the bacteria in your gut. We have a good indication of your gut lining, like the integrity of the gut lining. I know from me, I have a thinning of the gut lining. Stress, again, is a big contributor to that. But also with my history of asthma and allergies, I have probably always been prone to a very slightly compromised gut lining. So I know that I've got to be really careful. I add in bone broth, I add in good prebiotic and probiotic foods, I add in good digestible fiber, I have my linseed tea most days. All of those techniques will be supporting my immune function. I haven't been sick for years, but having had 32 years of chronic asthma and anaphylaxis and being sneezy and wheezy and irritable, that shows that there's been a picture of a compromised gut system. So I know that I've got to be really careful with wheat. I'm not celiac, but my gut health is compromised. So I know that all those little things that I do every day to build up my immune system are really important. And one of the big things, of course, is stress. So doing a lot to alleviate stress in my life. So all of those tests combined are very, very good. Like they're the three or four tests that you don't ever have to do to know exactly what you need to do for your health to make sure that you are going to be living a really long and really healthy life. So get in touch if you want to do some testing. You let me know. I'd be delighted to offer you my VIP package that has all of those tests or one of those tests. Because if you're struggling with your hormones, if you're not sleeping well, if you're struggling with joint pain, if you feel you're not digesting well, you're struggling with bloating and you're putting on weight and you're not sure why, then please get in touch, because these tests really help us get to the root cause of what's going on. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching on replay, do #replay. I think I'm going to go out for a walk. I don't know. Am I allowed out for a walk? I don't know. I'm just going to wait for, I don't know, maybe I'll get another call this afternoon to tell me I've got to stay inside or not. I don't know. I'm completely confused. Anyway, maybe I'll just duck out the back. Or maybe I'll walk around the house 50 times or something if I can't go out. Anyway, have a great weekend. And if you've got any questions about these tests, please put them in the comments. I'd be really happy to answer them. And if you'd like to book a test, then please send me a direct message and I can get you into my system. And what happens is you basically pay for the test. That money goes off to the labs. The labs send the test to you. Then you send the test back to the labs, and usually within about 15 days we get the results, and the results get sent to me, and then I help interpret those tests and tell you what they all mean, because every test result, every person is different, so we can find out exactly what's going on for you. All right, thanks. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.